Reference is good.
Reference is key to everything.
So, I guess for Johnny's, it is never not use reference.
And you have to have even if you draw it. So like, say you have an image in your head, right? And you're like, oh, I totally thought of this thing today. It'd be so cool, and you catch it out. That's your reference. So you just have to use something, because what happens, at least for me, I think if you've been doing this for a really long time and you've probably modeled a crap ton of different things, you could probably throw something together you don't need necessarily reference for. But what happens to me is I'm like, all right, I'm going to model this thing that's in my head. How do I model it? What does it look like? And that's the thing too, is if I do a drawing, I could do a front view, so now I know how it looks from the front, and I can do like a side view. And that way you can actually take screenshots or snap it with your camera, phone, whatever you want, and you can upload it so you can actually use that as your guide, because you have to have some kind of way to measure everything out.
Yeah,
So,
and then even with, I remember in school with references, we starting out, people are like, oh yeah, use reference. And I would kind of be like, yeah, okay, I got something up, whatever. And I would do something, and it would, to me, in my mind, since I'm looking at it this whole time, it it looks fine. Maybe, and it's kind of I remember I was working on a jacket, and the wrinkles on the jacket and everything. And it looked fine to me, but that's because I've been staring at it this whole time. And people walk by and they're like, doesn't look right. And I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't look right? They're like, something seems off. And even if they don't know what it is, just because it isn't those wrinkles weren't totally mimicking how wrinkles normally act, and I didn't use a reference from real life or from other people's work that know what they're doing, it looked off, and it was off.
yeah, that's actually a good tip too. With that is, when you have your reference, don't zoom in so close, because you get lost in the closeness. Meaning you gotta come out from the image every once in a while, because once you get in there, you're getting all the fine details, and then you come out and you're like, oh, that doesn't look right. Or I've only been working on this one section, so now if you really detail out one section, the rest of everything else has to look really detailed, because otherwise it won't match, and then it looks weird. So it's always a good idea to get in, zoom in, look at the image, look at whatever it is you're working on, and kind of come out, look at it, maybe picture a different angle, whatever, and then come back in if you need to.
Flip it.
Flip it's a good thing, but
Yeah,
that's not
that was a
something
big one.
I don't. I mean, well, it's different for me. I say just because I'm using Blender. So with
Yeah,
Blender,
in
right?
2D, that's something you can do. But
Right, and even with Blender stuff, if I came in here and I was super close to this mountain, trying to get this edge, I want this edge super perfect. I want to make sure it just looks right, and I'm like, okay, let me go ahead and I just want to move this out a little bit, because I'm trying to make a cliff face, and I'm not paying attention. Meanwhile, I've done 300 moves to get this perfect edge. Maybe I had a different edge selected over here by accident, which I didn't realize, or maybe this edge is not the one I meant to move, or it's now it's kind of wrapped into another edge, it's gotten too close, and I'm doing something like that and don't even realize. So now all your stuff looks messed up. So it's better to kind of get in, find out what you're doing, trying to get in here. Okay, let me come out and see how it looks from this angle. Let me pull it out this way, stuff like that. Same thing. You just get lost. That's actually how I did the wagon. Was a lot like that, because the wagon, when I made it, it was is it ammo cart? No, I don't think that's it. But it was just too. I was too close to get the wheels and everything. And then I came out and I was like, oh, something's off. This doesn't look right. I had to move stuff back. I had to move stuff down. So just stuff like that. I was trying to find the wagon for you guys. Did I?
so never stay zoomed in for too long.
There's the wagon. Yeah, never do that. I mean, guess you can. Yeah. Let's delete this. I don't need to do that. So yeah, I was breaking it. Hello, work for me. So yeah, and this back wheel, I had this back wheel too high up. It was up here, which means it didn't look right. So just zooming out, make sure it looks proportionate, almost like a car, right? You gotta have center balance. So
Yeah.
I don't know. You can't be in here too long. You gotta get out. That's it. Any of that makes
Some
sense?
good
I'm
tips.
confused.
Yeah, makes plenty of sense.
Talking too much about
You
nonsense.
got another one? One more.
Well, I have
You're on
one
a
more.
roll. One more. One more.
Can you game dev tip. Oh,
It could be an art tip.
no,
Whichever.
this is an important one. Because I figured this out the other day. So you can think of an idea, right? And you can think, okay, I have the concept. I have this idea. I want the dog. I want to make a game about a little dog. And the dog runs around and he just collects bones and then he digs bones in the backyard. That's perfect. That's fine. But what seems to happen is then you're like, okay, but what's the purpose of the game? Like, what's the overall goal of the game? Like, yeah, that might be fun for a level, but what's level 2? The same thing? So is he trying to save all his bones for like a reason? Is he trying to build up something? Maybe it's a sculptor dog and he wants to sculpt a picture of himself. I don't know. But you basically have to have some kind of story. And what I've started finding for myself is that I would start getting really excited about my ideas. I'm like, oh, this idea would be great. But I never fleshed out the concept of where the beginning, the middle, and the end will be. Excuse me, guys. And that's really important because it gives you, it's almost like your reference because now you know where to grow the story. You kind of have an idea of how to build the player or the character or what it is and what path they're going to be on. And say you're like, okay, the dog's going to have like 5 different upgrades. Well, if you have a story planned out, you don't want to just give the dog all the upgrades right away. You got to figure out, oh, what time do I give the upgrades? How does it work? Things like that. So you have to write out the concept of your overall goal, which gives you the direction to take the game, because otherwise you're just kind of guessing. And then you want it to make sure it flows. So if you write it out, you can have, the people you're working with. If you're doing a solo, then you can have somebody else, but kind of review it, look at it, to kind of give their feedback to see if, are you on a right path? Does it make sense? That's a big thing too, is you got to make sure that you don't kind of get lost in your own story and you have a pretty clear beginning, middle, and end, which is what I did with the game we're going to work on next. I had to write it all out. So.
Yeah. Those are good ones.
Those are good. Where did that come from? I think I blacked out. I don't know. What did happen?
Okay, so moving on, because
Yeah.
I don't know my 3.
Oh, yeah. He's been waiting for this for like 6 weeks at these game tests.
6 weeks? Not even.
I know, like 2 days. All right.
Like, since today.
That's today. I have a great idea. I'm going to do it today. Go for it, buddy.
So I would say number 3 for me would be to never be fully attached to an idea, because you can work on it you could get like almost all the way done with it and have people test it out and play it and stuff, or just, stuff happens and you don't work on it for a week, you come back, you just lose interest and don't feel like working on it again, and you scrap it. Like, you're going to scrap a lot of ideas and a lot of projects, so don't get too attached to one single project, because it's going to happen. It's happened to us a whole bunch. Like 10, 20 times.
Well, and I think the caveat with that would be the reason why it happens is because at the same time we're not working on it. So I think if you do have an idea, you have to, there's going to be days where you don't want to work on it, just like anything in life, any project, you're not going to want to work on it. So you kind of have to force yourself to sit down, do 30 minutes, an hour, whatever it takes, because if you don't, there's no forward progress, which means it doesn't get done, which means you come to the point where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to scrap it.
Yeah.
So that'd be my...
I would say number 2 would be...
Who does number 2 work for?
Let's see. Number two tip.
Okay, I thought you said you had these planned out.
I thought I did too.
Did mine all on the fly, and they were that good.
Okay, I would say number 2 would be to never compare yourself to others in the industry, because there are people that have been doing it for a lot longer than you, and there's always going to be somebody better. So if you are going through and seeing all these people's works, don't compare your work to theirs, because your work is your work. You should, if you're going to compare your work to anybody's, compare it to yourself in your previous work to see if you've improved at all. Because that's what you want to do. You want to strive to improve and be better than what you were. Not to be better than Johnny, not to be better than me, not to be better than some studio that you love or follow. Just strive to improve and be the best you can be and not compare yourself to others, because that can kind of get you in a really dark place and you can lose motivation with that. Because I kind of did that when I started game dev, was I would see all these cool projects on Twitter, and then people would be like Stardew Valley made by one person, and I'll be like, oh my, how can I make a whole game by myself like that?
You can't. That's why there's two of us.
Yeah. Exactly. So just don't compare yourself to others, because it could lead to a lot of stuff that isn't good for your mental health.
Very true. Yeah,
I would say.
Whoa.
Go ahead.
No, you first, buddy.
No, go ahead.
We're like merging into.
I was gonna jump into my number one tip.
Go for it. Go.
No,
do it.
I want you to talk first.
Okay.
It'll be a suspenseful buildup.
Fine. So how's everyone doing today? It's Friday. Any great plans? So, I completely agree. Actually, that's why I don't do the social stuff. I don't like being on Instagram and stuff, because I start there's people I love to follow, and they're motivational, they're inspiring, they're cool, whatever, Robert Downey Jr., stuff like that. But I started finding myself that I would get so lost in being like, oh man, I wish I was that cool, or oh gosh, everything just seems to they just make everything look so effortless, even though I know how much work they are putting in and dedication and time. Or that's another big thing. A lot of people that you'll find in the game dev industry or whatever saying, I'm doing crunch and I'm working this, so I only get 3-4 hours of sleep at night, but I'm doing this. But that's not going to be for everybody. Sure, there's some nights I could probably do, get 3-4 hours and just keep going. That's why I love game jams. But is that realistic for what I'm trying to accomplish? No, because I have another job that I have to do. So, and that's the thing too, is you don't, Cody was saying, you don't want to compare yourself to a Stardew Valley. You don't want to try to be like, well, they do. My game. Okay, so if I spent 4 years on a game, it's totally going to do as well as that did. That's not necessarily the case. Do I think that the person thought when they were making that game that it's going to be as big as it is? I'm sure if you asked them, they probably thought, no, of course not. A lot of times we just make these games because it kind of this idea accumulates in our mind, and we're like, oh, that'd be cool. One of the things I make games for, believe it or not, I make games that I want to play. I make things that I want to be sitting on the toilet, playing on my phone, playing this game. Or just kind of, chilling in the doctor's office, whatever, hanging out, playing with friends, something like that, right? Because you want something that you want to enjoy, because then that keeps you active or interested in making it. So I think that, a lot of games people make, I think they're like, oh, I'd love to play this game. Sometimes I'll be on the phone, like, oh, it'd be cool as a game like that. And so I think that would be cool to make, because then I would want to play it. Now, do I think other people were on the same place? Heck no. Obviously, people don't like the same thing that other people like. I mean, obviously, a lot of us do, but I'm saying it's we don't human to live all the exact same things. We like different things. That's why we have so many choices. So,
yeah.
Don't compare yourself to other people.
That is actually a great segue into my number one tip. And that is to never get into game dev specifically for the money.
Wait, what?
Because if you do, never get into game dev specifically for money.
Why are we doing this?
Because if you do, you will be disappointed on how hard it is to actually get that goal.
Yeah. Yes.
Because it is super hard, and you will get discouraged. It goes back to comparing yourself to others. You will get really discouraged very quickly. You want it, if you're thinking about getting into game dev and making games, actually have an interest in wanting to make games. And then the money can be secondary, but you have to actually want to be interested into it, find an interest in it, and enjoy it. Because if you don't, honestly, I think you're wasting your time and you could be doing something else. Like, if you're not really passionate about it, then you might want to just do it as a hobby. And if you make money, cool. But don't get in it to think, oh, I'm going to get rich off of my one game or my one app that I make. Because Flappy Bird did it, and Stardew Valley did it, and all these other people made so much money off of their game. And don't think it's easy either, because it's not the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And like that's a genius point because they're most like tonight I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I had a long week. I'm still having a long week. I've worked like 22 hours in like the last 2 days of my job. So like coming home has been the last thing I've wanted to do is jump on this. And I did do it yesterday, to be honest. It's Halloween, trick or treaters. I was exhausted. However, today I could have said, "Look, dude, I'm tired. I'm exhausted. Can we just do the podcast tomorrow? I get off work, whatever." No, it's like no, I want to do it. Let's get it done. I need to do it. It's for me. But like the fact that it's a good example. That's like I said before. The reason why we're doing these videos and this podcast is because we want to show the average person that thinks, I would love to get into games or I'd love to do something creative. I don't know if I can do it. I have all these other responsibilities, all these things. We want to show you guys that you can because we're working towards it. Now, do we think it's going to happen? We hope so. We don't know for sure 100% if we're going to be successful enough to do it as a career permanently. That's the goal. But
Yeah,
like,
it's definitely not a get rich quick type of mindset.
no. And like, so we're doing, and that's a good example is because I originally was doing programming because I wanted to get in the game industry. And I knew that doing programming was a faster way to get into the game industry because people need programmers. So, but I didn't have a passion for it. I've studied programming for like 5 years, like maybe 6, because I still listen or, partake in some kind of programming just to keep myself fresh. But it wasn't sticking because I was so not interested in it. And that's when we as a company talked and we said, look, you are doing great with programming, Cody. You love it. Go with it. I actually really enjoy the art. I really do. I don't like characters as much just because there's so many details you have to put into them. But I really enjoy the art. It's relaxing. I can just put on music and just go. So we decided, then let's do that. And so far, since we've made that transition, things are going smoother. We're actually making forward progress on a game. We're actually uploading videos pretty regularly. We're constantly communicating about it. So it's not, whereas before it's like, I can't make the character jump today. I just don't feel like it, And then next thing I know, Cody's like, I made the character jump. Here's the inventory. Here's the character quest system. He's doing everything because he's into programming. And now I'm like, oh, great. So now what do I get to do? Nothing. So, you gotta flip. And that's the thing is like, you can't be like everyone. For a great example, I think also Critical Role. Look at those amazing people that they were doing D&D by themselves in their house for years. And then one of the friends said, oh, you got to check this out. They checked it out. They said, oh my gosh, you should come on Geek and Sundry. And then it just skyrocketed. So all the people that are coming after them trying to do things are like, oh, if they're doing it, we could do it. That's not necessarily how it works. I mean, there's a lot of great people out there, I'm sure, doing the stuff. But we all want to reach that level that we see, right? So we see, for example, Critical Role, Bethesda, Stardew Valley, who else is that? What's Brave?
Flappy Bird was a big one.
Brave, Meat Boy, all these games.
Crossy Roads.
We're like, oh, we could get on that level. And that might not be the case. You might be on a level with them, but you might be like down here, And you have to be willing to accept that.
Especially if you're not really like the first one to get in on it.
Right.
Because like Flappy Bird, that was like one of the first like casual one-tap gameplay games, and it boomed. But now those games are everywhere. It's super saturated.
Right.
So I mean, it's gonna be hard to get noticed and get in there. When Flappy Bird came out, there wasn't that many games out on the App Store. It wasn't as saturated as it is now. So, but even then, the guy released it, and I think I watched the video, and it didn't start getting super downloads until like 3 years later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So definitely don't go into game dev with the mindset, oh, I'm gonna make money and I'm gonna get rich off of my one game, because more than likely it's not gonna happen. It's gonna be a long process for you to get to the point where you're not only good enough, but have enough of a following to, when you release the game, it's gonna skyrocket. Like, it's gonna take a bit to get there. Um, One example is Butterscotch Shenanigans. They've been around for a good long time. They've released like small mobile games, and then they came out with Crashlands. That took off. And then they just came out with another game, and that one's taking off right now. So it's kind of like a build-up. You got to work towards it and to get to the point where your quality and everything is good enough to people like look out for your stuff.
Yeah. And that's building the fan base, building it, showing people that you're still doing it. That's the thing. I think we all get to a point, like, you can't keep up with all the developers out there because there's so many people making games. So it's hard. So you have to keep pushing to kind of try to reach a little bit through the top, just so people could go, oh, okay, well, they've been around for 5-10 years. Okay, so they're actually doing stuff. They're the people that released that game. Oh, I kind of liked that game. Stuff like that. And then you kind of build up the following, just like starting a YouTube channel. Like we started this basically as for us, and it's not like we're not getting millions of followers or anything. And a lot of people that I've watched videos about being YouTube and how to do YouTube stuff, it's like it's taken them years to get as many followers as they have, because you have to build up that stuff. So don't beat yourself up over it. Plus, like Cody said before, your quality gets better over time.
Yeah, like, look, I got a new camera because of Johnny, so my camera quality is better.
So it's all about.
And I think our podcast quality has gotten a lot better too from when we first started.
I think so. I think our timing's a little bit better. We've upgraded the equipment, so the sound's a little bit better. We still
Streaming now.
Yeah, we still have room for improvement, of course, and we see that our biggest room for improvement is basically consistency, and I think that's the hardest part. So, one thing at a time.
We'll get there.
Yeah. And that's why we need you guys to go to our Patreon right now. And
definitely, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm just going to say it, subscribe if you enjoy it, at least.
Yeah.
If you're watching on Mixer, subscribe. If you're listening to any of the outlets that we have our audio version on, subscribe to there. Go to our Twitter, Lazy Goblins. We're pretty much, you can look up Lazy Goblins and we'll probably be the only thing that shows up.
Yeah. For now. We got to make sure we TM that or something. I don't know. But yeah, so, those are all great tips, actually. Cody, that was really spot on.
That was a good one.
Yeah, that was really good.